So, Sean, the Leeds United and Leicester have gone down. Which one do you want to start with? Because I think they're very different relegations with some very things that are also in common. Which one do you think is more of a shock, for instance?
Oh, I think Leicester probably, because I don't think it's a secret for me to say this. Most people feel they had a squad which was too good to go down. I know that's an old cliche. I
think it's the best squad to go down since West Ham.
20 years ago.
They have the 7th biggest wage bill in the Premier League, which itself sets up another problem for next season, doesn't it?
And I know people are divided on this one, but I thought letting Kasper Schmeichel go seemingly without a fight set a bad precedent, a bad example. I couldn't understand that. There are some Leicester fans who say, well, he wasn't as good last season as he had been in previous seasons. He was a big character around there. He was somebody who was a bit of a leader. I know a couple of Leicester fans who really liked him and were dumbfounded that he went, but he went sort of without much outrage. I listened on here and I didn't hear many people kicking up a fuss on talkSPORT about it.
It's not like he's gone to play in Madrid or something. I mean, he's gone to play in France. I mean, with all due respect.
It was poignant. And all right, say you agree with Kasper Schmeichel going, you don't sign another top quality goalkeeper. You go with a bloke, Danny Ward, he'd been there about 5 years. I mean, up until this season, he'd played a handful of games in 4 seasons. Prior to that, where'd he been on? I don't know, at Huddersfield. He played a couple of games for Liverpool in about the space of 4 years. That is not a goalkeeper who belongs at Premier League elite level. He's 28, 29 years old. Surely, if you're going to have something, then get yourself the top-class goalkeeper in. But it seemed to be ours, all right? We'll put Danny Ward in, he'll do it.
Let me ask you, Scott, I have a theory about this, and of course you are perfectly welcome to say you're an idiot. I get that.
I would never say that to you, Danny.
I think there's a complacency in the Premier League. I think there's a complacency among all the teams outside the top 6 or 7 that 2 of the teams that come out of the Championship will go down this season. Mm-hmm. So you've only got to find yourself better than one team. This year, and it's very unusual, nobody went down from the Championship. Teams all did okay. And that, of course, meant that teams that fancied themselves all puffed up as Premier League regulars went through the drain hole.
No, absolutely. And I totally agree with Sean. I think if you look at the squad, talent-wise, they're top 10. Not just, just above the relegation zone.
Tielemans, Maddison, Ndidi, Harvey Barnes, a brilliant player. You could go on and on.
Absolutely. And I think it's more than just the goalkeeper, even as crucial a position as that is. I think, it kind of almost goes back to the death of the previous owner, and things changed there, and Son Top came in, and there was an overspend on the contracts, whereas Vichai kept a very tight rein, and the director of finance left. And with that sort of dramatic spend and the overheads and expenditure
then
increasing...
The
COVID hitting... So they lost, I think they were down to the last billion, weren't they? A bit like you, Danny.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's right.
On the breadline for you anyway. But no, they were...
Oh, but I tried to lend them a few bob, but they weren't having it.
Yeah, exactly. No. But then they were also looking at the sort of FFP of UEFA rather than the Premier League, which is 70% rather than 85% of wages to turnover. So the complete overspend, then they're worried. And then in the summer, Brendan kind of wanted, and I understand why he wanted to kick on. All good managers should. And he didn't bring anyone in. And then obviously Fofana went on the last day. Okay, Wout Faes came in straight after that as well. But by then it was almost like I always felt Brendan had lost it mentally. As good a coach as he is, and maybe he's got his own sort of cycle of being at a clubs for a certain amount of time, a 3-year cycle. And it just cracked on from there. Just before the World Cup, it looked like they were going on again. The World Cup happens, and you're thinking, okay, well, they're going to still go back up the table.
Nacho got a couple of goals, didn't he? Which turned draws.
Absolutely.
Wins, yeah.
And you're right, Danny, to compare it to the West Ham squad. I was part of that West Ham squad.
Oh, I forgot that, Scott. I didn't mean to bring all that up.
Well, I wasn't playing. I kind of, it was decided I wasn't good enough to be in the
squad. Such a strong squad.
Absolutely. You got Joey Cole, Mickey Carrick, David James, Trevor Sinclair, Paolo Di Canio, Jermaine Defoe. It was just unbelievable. That squad was too good to go down, but obviously wasn't. So